And I will share. So let me just get a private window. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, hi everybody. We are going to start on production today. So let me just paste in the URL for the production site into the chat. And we've got the same training site that we saw last time here. So if you visit that site, if you haven't visited it before, you should be prompted for username and password. And as with all browser prompts, when you're working on staging or production, it will be YRL and YRL as the username and password. And we should see our beautiful training site. Let me get into the back end as well. Let me also send you that URL. It will be this one. Same prompt, YRL, YRL. And my editor is this one, I think. All right. So you should all have logins to the back end here. And if you don't, certainly you can follow up with Andrew about that. What you should see when you log in is your site as well as the training site. So when you first log in, you end up in the content structure. I've expanded library sites, YRL. You should see YRL training. You should also at the same level see your own library. This particular test user has access to the training site and the headquarters site, but I will focus only on the training site for today. So of course, if you have any questions about your own site, feel free to ask. Where we left it off last time, so the first training we had, we went through some general editing, let's say, rules, and we went through a general page, gallery pages, and the news pages. I got a few more tips, just general editing tips, but maybe I'll start off with another content type, that is the Contact Us page. So the Contact Us page, for most of your sites, you should have this link at the top, Contact and Hours, and it leads you to a contact page. Some of you might not have this. If you're a multi-branch setup, this may be hidden, but most of you should have this contact page. If you have a contact page, you have up to one page. So you either have 0 or 1 of such pages. And it just shows some basic contact information, hours, and the contact form. I show this in the front end with /contact as the path, and a little review from last time. If you get to your site, the root of your site, you should be able to paste just that path. You'll end up at that page. The other way to get there, if I'm on the home page, I can see in the sub items list, here's the contact page. The contact page is really straightforward in that there's almost nothing to edit. Everything is automatically pulled from mostly items that are on the home page. We'll cover the home page in the last training. That'll be next Monday, but just know that all of that is essentially being pulled from there. If we look at the fields that you can edit here, so I'm on the contact page in the back end and I click edit. You just manage the title of the page. You can add a hero image. You can either upload that directly to this page or you can add it from the media library. This is a holdover from our Marigold test, so maybe the recipient email would be askyRL@ca. And you can toggle whether to have the form or not. You don't have to do it. You can check this box, hide form. Let's see what happens there. If I refresh this page, you won't get the form. I'm just going to turn that back on just to finish off the explanation of this functionality. This form is unique in that there's only one contact page and there's only one contact form, and the recipient that's configured on this page will receive all emails. So someone just fills this in. The other thing is that these fields are fixed. So these will be the fields for every library's contact page. This is in contrast to the other forms on the site, and that's actually what the bulk of today will be. We're going to be covering custom forms and events, which has registration forms, where that's much more configurable. But contact page, the form on that page has some fixed fields here. And that's it for the contact page. If for whatever reason you don't want that page, it's probably already been done for you already, but this is a good segue to showing how to hide. There are two ways to get at hiding a page. The first is when you're on a page, go to the locations tab, you can hide that page. So if I refresh that no more page, there's actually also no more link there. But in this case, I do want it, so I'll show you the other way to do it. Just like when you hit it, you could reveal it here, but I'm going to show you the other way. So if I'm on the parent page and we bring up this kind of hidden context sensitive menu, when you click on this icon next to contact, then I'm going to get the ability to hide or reveal that page. It's under advanced. I just click hide and hide, and the page is back. Last tip, just general tip before I move on to contact forms is this sub items area. Sub items area is really useful because it shows you the name. You might see the same thing. It's got published. Translation is not that useful. All of your sites are in English, and priority. We'll get to priority in a moment, but there's more you can show here. And so if you see this table options link, you can decide what gets shown here. So let's say if I don't find translations relevant, I can also show visibility. I also like to show type. Modifier, also a good one. Modified, why not? So you can show a lot more information in this sub items table. And visibility, that's useful. So you can see whether something's hidden. Everything's visible now, but if I were to hide this contact page again, it'll show it's visible. The type of page it is, who was the last person to modify it, and what was the modified date. So this is what I usually like to have in this table. Lots of good information here. All right, that is our start with pretty straightforward contact us page content type, as well as some tricks for hiding and showing some more information in the sub items table. Before I move on to custom forms, any questions? All right, let's get over to some custom forms. Custom forms are particularly exciting for me because you can do so much with it. Here on the training site, if you're following along on your own computer, you can go over to the custom forms folder. This is just for organization, that they're in a folder. They don't have to be in a folder. They can live anywhere in the tree. This is where we've got all these example custom forms. And if I go over to this suggest a title page, you can see this form. So let me just edit it, and you can see some examples of how we can use it. So the custom form has always a title. It's got a description that'll show up above the form, and you've got all these form fields. I'll get into the form fields in just a moment. Recipient, let's say in this case, let's make it peter@mugo.ca. And you can put some thank you text if you choose. when someone fills in the form, it'll show this text. If you don't, it'll show some generic text. I think it's just thanks. And you can also customize some text that is shown in the email that is sent to patrons. And that is if you have a field of the email type, then you can choose to send them a copy of that form. So that's where this comes in. But we'll get into the fields that you can use on custom forms. And before I do that, now that we've just taken a quick look at the back end, I'm going to just show you the front end. So it should be this. Okay, so there's the title, description, and we've got the fields. Now, there are quite a few fields, types of fields you can have. First thing I'll show you is that you can reorder them. So you just drag and drop to change the order here. And you can also add new fields. Just click this plus button here, add a lot of fields. You can also delete them. I just click this title to expand it, and I'm going to remove these that I just added. And let's just look at what we currently have. So when you click this title to expand the properties of this field, see a few things you can modify. First of all is the name of the field, what the type of the field is. So we've got quite a few options here. I'll just go to the front end. I think it's mostly text. Yeah, these are mostly just text fields. This one is showing a multiple choice. And this is a text area. If we look at the other field types, we've got date and time. You can allow file uploads, some numbers, a password. The password will be just like text, but it won't show what the person is typing in. Single multiple choice was what I showed you on the front end with those checkboxes, but you can select checkboxes or radio buttons or multi-select. But this one is just a text field. So there's the field name, field type. There's also a description that'll show underneath the name if you enter it. It's optional. You can also decide whether the field is required. And lastly, you can assign some validators. There's only a few here. In most cases, you might not use them other than marking a field as required or not. But if necessary, we've got a few here where you can decide it needs to be a certain minimum number of characters, maximum number of characters. A library card, I think, just validates against the field being 14 digits. I think this field actually has that. No, it doesn't. But if it did, it would be validating that it was 14 digits, or a URL. It needs to be a URL. But in most cases, you won't use these validators. So that's the types of fields and what you can modify per field. The last thing I'll show is probably an email. So let me just save what I did here, and we'll fill in this form. Okay, let's just do that. And the recipient, so it's weird. I'll just use another address. Barcode 4. Home library. Let's go with Drayton. Title. These are optional. I'll just stick with the title, and let's say I wanted it in an ebook form. Okay, so let's submit that. Oh, this is good. It thinks I'm a robot. Maybe it's because I'm in private mode. All the forms have reCAPTCHA built in. You don't need to do anything for that. In most cases, it's pretty silent, but for some reason it thinks I'm a robot. So let's see if I can identify stairs. All right. So now we can see the thank you text that was entered in the back end, and it confirms with me what I entered. I won't show the email notification that goes out. You can definitely test this. But I will show you in the back end what happens. So here, all of the submissions will end up being shown in the back end. You can see what they filled in. That's in addition to the email that gets sent to the recipient. And not only can you see it in the back end here, but you can export that to a CSV. So then, let's say you needed to contact all of them, you want to export it to a CSV, it's easy to parse those email addresses all in the spreadsheet. I think that is all for the custom forms. Actually, let me just give you a couple minutes. Any questions? And this is actually a good thing to practice. If you're able to sign in, I'll just give a couple minutes to see if you want to go to the custom forms folder, and then you can create a new custom form and test for that. And I'll check back in a couple minutes, see how you all did. All right, we got at least a couple here, I think. Well, trying out the multiple choice. Let's see. Oh yeah, multi drop down this one, multi-select. Okay, any questions on the custom forms? Check the chat. All right, let's move on to the book lists. The book lists on the training site are in a book lists folder. They don't have to go in a folder, but this is useful for organization purposes. And instead of showing you one on the front end, let's just create one. Actually, we can go through that process. So I'm in this book list folder here. I can create a new book list. I don't know if you can hear those trucks, but actually I think it's a train. create a new book list. Let's go with spring reads. So short description, this will brighten your day. Okay, I'm gonna skip this read alike for now, and I'll show you how to add books to this book list. It's just got a title and description, and we can add books. First thing is when you start with an empty list, it'll allow you to import some. So Yellowhead has created a few starter lists. If I just import that, I can start with that. But now this is my list. Once I've imported those books, I can do anything I want. So let's say I only wanted, just randomly picking some, I only wanted these 3. So now this is my list. If you start with these 3, I'm just going to add some more. What you can do here is you can enter the ISBN, the UPC, or the control number. If you got a stack of books in the scanner, this should work. Just put your cursor in here. You can scan the books, and they should automatically paste the code and hit enter to automatically add these books. I've got a few examples here just to flesh out this list. And the last one, what is this one? All right, so here's my book list. We got 6, and I'm going to hit publish. So this is automatically pulling in the information from Polaris through TrackPack. And it has imported the necessary information, including the image for each book. And if I publish this, let's use our URL trick. If I just copy this, put it on the front end, I should be able to see my book list. There we go. So no matter what order I add the books in, it's going to default to sorting them by title in alphabetical order on the front end. A patron can also change the sort to be by author, but these are the 2 sorts. And we can see that we've got the title, the author information, a description, and if I were to click on either the title or the image, it'll end up over in the catalog. So that's how it works here, building book lists in the CMS. And I'll show you the other feature. So I can select one of these to be featured. The point of setting it to be featured is that we're kind of toggling this read alike behavior. So it means that this list is based on a featured book. And so it's usually a more well-known book. People know this book, and here are some other reads that may be interesting to you if you liked this book. So the moment that I do that, and I publish that, it's going to display this layout a little differently. It's still got the title and the description, but it's featuring this book. And here are some books like it. So in order to do that, I just set it as featured. You can only have one as featured. So if I wanted to change it, I just click set as featured. It turned it off for the other ones. Or I just unclick it. I click it and it'll make it so that none of them is featured. I will show this read alike in the last training when we get to the home page. This is just a little toggle, not toggle, it's an override you can make for a header. There's a different view when you're showing a book list on a home page or on a general page where it'll feature the book and it'll say read alike, but you can say, you know, books like this or something, but we'll get to that in the last training. But this is a book list. It's pretty straightforward in that you got some basic information about the book, and then you can add books one by one. If I had none, just in this one, it'll revert back to allowing me to import from one of the starter lists. So that is the book list feature. quick way to pull in books from the catalog onto the website itself. Any questions about that? All right. Possibly the biggest feature on the site is events. Let's get over to events. So you got an events calendar, and in the events calendar, you've got some events, and the events calendar, it has this calendar view by default, and you can also click this link. It'll show a list view. The list view is what's shown on mobile, but you can also show it on desktop. The calendar will only show on larger devices. I can click this calendar view to get back to the calendar view. In the back end, it is pretty straightforward in terms of the content types. There are only two, at least for the events themselves. We have the events landing page, and under the events landing page, you have events. These can be organized into folders if you'd like. There is a feature that is across all the sites that once an event has passed, it will automatically be filed into a past events folder. So if I look in this past events folder, because this was some example old event, you can see that they'll end up getting filed in these folders. You can still view them on the front end unless you hide the events, but they will get filed. It's just to make it a little cleaner. If you don't automatically put your events in folders, if you just put them in the root of the events tree, then as time goes by, it's just cleaner. The system will automatically file them into the past events folders. But the main thing for events is the event content type. And this one, we have just one useful example, at least on the training site. And let's just look at this. We've got the title. It's got category. You can select multiple categories, but it'll only feature the first one. And then it's got date information, location, description, and then date information. That's if it's recurring, and I'll get into that in a moment. There's also an optional registration form. Let's ignore that for now because that does not appear on the event content type itself. But when we look at the event content type, here we can see the title. I forgot to note that we've also got an image here. The date information. So this is where a lot of the interesting complex stuff happens. This one happens to be recurring every month on the third Wednesday. It never ends. So let's get into that a little bit. So actually, this test event was started in 2020, and it's recurring every month. So here we are at 2023. It's still recurring, never ends. You can change this to end on a specific date. This one happens to never end. And if we look at the options here, it's a bunch of drop downs. By default, events will be just single events, pretty straightforward, just one day with a start and end time. But when it goes recurring, that's when you've got a lot more options. You can select that it happens every few months or weeks. Weeks is a little simpler because you just pick the day. Months, that's where you can say, well, it happens on a specific day of the month, or it happens on the first, second, third, fourth, or last day. If you have something even more complex than this, let's say it happens every week on Tuesday, but it also happens every week on Thursday. That's when you use this add date rule button, and you can add multiple rules within one event. So this is where you can create some pretty complex schedules for events without having to create additional events. That's most of the complication wrapped up in the date information field. The other fields should be pretty straightforward. Other than location, they're all optional. Cost, short description, description. Short description, as we saw with, I think, the news content type, this shows up in what we call listing views. So the description shows up on the event itself, but if this event were featured, let's say in this list view, or in a search result, or on the home page, that's where the short description would come into play. The description and then categories. So categories, you can select one main category, and within a main category, you can select multiple subcategories. And that's where I said, if you've got multiple categories selected, it's only showing the main category. Here. Where the subcategories come into play is for filtering. And so if I'm on the events calendar and I select adult, then I can select some subcategories to filter on. That is the event content type. There's one more thing about events before I get into registration forms, that is exceptions. But any questions so far on what I've showed about events and the events calendar? Can we create subcategories? That is across the CMS. Actually, it is shared between Marigold Piece and YRL. So yeah, that's something that's centrally controlled. You can't create events at a individual library. Sorry, you cannot create subcategories at an individual library level. Okay, exceptions. So the event schedule can be controlled in the event itself. But if you have an exception, let's say, well, let's go back to the calendar here. Calendar view and Booksters Book Club. So for some, it's a pretty simple event. It happens, what was it, the third Wednesday. This month, it's going to happen on a different day. You create an event exception underneath the event. Why? Why wouldn't you do that in the event itself? Because maybe you have some additional information you need to show about that exception. And that's why this comes into play, where it will end up linking you to a new page so that you might have some additional information about that. Now, you can also skip it so it's not happening this time, and then the page won't show at all. Let's actually just start with that. So April 19 skipped. And here it'll allow you to select the occurrence, and it's not happening. So if it's not happening at all, I don't need to do anything else. I just publish this and it will disappear from the calendar. And if you look at next month, it's still happening on the third Wednesday, but it's canceled for this month. But let's say it's not actually canceled, it's just moved. So I choose that I want to change this event. So then I can say, well, instead of the 19th, well, that was in the past, so I'll just select it's happening the following week. It'll happen this Wednesday at 7 p.m. So I've changed this, and let's say Booksters Book Club April 2023 as the title. I can override anything about this event. But if I don't enter any of these fields, it'll just pull from the main event. So let's just, probably most common is the description. So what was the description for that? So let's just copy that. Let's say if I wanted to just put a disclaimer, probably do this better, but just for demo purposes, I would say, for the month of April, this is happening on April 26th, not April 15th. Okay, so I'll publish that. And I've changed the 19th over to the 26th. All going well, I should now see that on the 26th, and it will link to the exception, pulling in all the existing information about the location and the general occurrences, but it's pulling in my special description And in the list of event dates, which happens for recurring events, it's saying that it's happening on the 26th instead of the 19th. And that's where this exception comes into play, where you're showing a different page about this exception itself, and it shows the exception on the calendar. Okay, so that's exception. Now I'm going to talk about registration forms. So events don't have to have registration forms, but if you do want to have a registration form, you create a registration form underneath the event. And I don't think there's been anything here. So actually, let me just pull up my demo site. That might be more useful. All right. Here is an event with a registration form on the demo site. Okay, this event happens every Friday, and here we have a registration form. It shows you that you have 5 spots, but they're all filled, that there are 5 waiting spots open. None of them have been claimed yet. If I look at the back end for this form, you can see the registrations. Those are the 5. Then there's a wait list. You can also see canceled. And this was filled out in the registration form itself. So actually, let me just show you that. So if I edit this registration form, you've got a title, you've got the fields. I'll show you the fields in a moment, but it has specified that there is a limit of 5 and a wait list limit of 5 as well. And this is a recipient. So whenever someone registers, this person will get the email about it. There's also this type of form I'll show you in a moment, but you can't change that once you've created a registration form with registrations. But just for the quick demo of how things work, I'm going to stick with this. The fields. This is a little different than the custom forms in that it's not as free form, but you just select which fields you want. And you do that by just dragging them over. If you don't want it, you just drag them back. And then within this list, you can reorder it. The reason for this is that, at least with Marigold and Peace, we determined, well, this is actually all we ever needed for registration forms. So there's a big list. It's actually pretty easy to add to this list. So that's something you can follow up with Andrew about if you want to add things to this list. But what we found actually for the years we've been running is this list has actually been fine, and you just drag it over. It's a little easier. You can select which fields are used without having to specify all of the information about the registration form fields. That's where we got first name, last name, and email. And let's just see what happens. The reason why I'm showing you this is to show you what happens with wait lists. I always forget when I do this demo who should be the next person, King Friday or Thursday. Maybe it was because Friday party was Friday. Let's say King Friday, registered King Friday at mugo.ca. What happens is once this person is registered, they're now on the wait list, and they'll get an email about it. I won't show the emails in this training, but it'll say you're being registered for the wait list for this event. We'll let you know if a spot opens up. So now King Friday is on this list. What happens now? So when these people registered, they got an email that said you've been registered for this event. If you would like to cancel, you can click this link. So if they clicked the link to cancel, then they can do that themselves. Or they might call the library. The library can then log into the back end here and cancel the registration. So let's say that's what's happening here. Well, let's say Miss Elena either clicked that link in her email or she called the library, and I'm the librarian who's just going to cancel this. So when that happens, a bunch of emails will go out. It'll go out to Miss Elena saying you have now been removed from the registration, but it also sent an email to King Friday to say that a spot is now opened up. You are now on the main list. And so you can see all that happening in the back end here. Now on this list, I've got King Friday taking up the 5th slot. And Miss Elena is now on the canceled list. And just like custom forms, you can export all this information to a spreadsheet. That's registration forms and that quick demo there. I will just show you one more thing about registration forms. And back on the site here, right. So we don't have registrations yet, so I can show you that last feature. So just like what I showed you in the demo, we have the title of the registration form, some fields that you can drag over, registration limit, waitlist limit, recipient. Which I don't think the demo site had thank you text. But here is what I want to show you. So type of form. So this doesn't really matter when you have a single occurring event. So it just happens, that specific day at this time. But when you have recurrences, so every Tuesday, every Friday, you can change how this form works. Either you're registering for the entire series. So it's happening, let's say it happens for 10 Tuesdays, and when you register once for the entire series, or per occurrence. So then the forms will be different per Tuesday. Every Tuesday, it's a different list. Per date rules, a little more nuanced. If you had selected multiple date rules, it happens on Tuesdays and happens on Fridays, then you can select that the patron will register only for the Tuesdays or only for the Fridays. So that's where these options come in. 2 more things I'll say now that we're here. These limits has to be a positive number. If you put a registration limit of 0, it's not going to accept any registration. So it's kind of unlimited. Just enter a really big number. And send email reminder. So the system will automatically send emails to all registrants 24 hours before the event. You can disable that per registration form. You just make sure this box is not checked. Okay, that is the whole events feature, from the landing page to the individual events with the different recurrences, down to registration forms with registration limit, waitlist limits, and being able to register for the entire series or individual occurrences or for the date rule. And lastly, about the email reminders that go out that you can disable for a particular form. Any questions about all of that? All right. So I'm not going to, we've got 2 big things that I'm going to save for next week. That's the homepage and the menus. But I will cover some miscellaneous items, so as not to fry everyone's brains. A couple more tips just on editing in general. So we've gone through hiding. You can hide either through the locations tab or in the sub items window, sub items table. 2 other main things you might do are copy or move. So let's take a look at that. So move, let's say you had everything is in this books list folder, and I wanted to move this out. So let's go with the Spring Reads one that I created. In order to do that, here we've got the big edit button, but if you click this 3 dots, you got move, copy, and remove. So move, just click move here. And then it gets into this browse mode. And so here I am in the book lists tree. And what you're going to do is you select where you want to put it. And that is the parent of where you want to put it. So let's just actually say that I wanted to put it into the just the root of the site. So there's just one gotcha, is that you have to go one level up to where you want to go so that you can select that. So I go one level up by clicking this arrow, and then I can select that I'm moving it into the root of the site. Click select. Now you can see that actually there's 2 pages. Oh, this is a good one. So this is paginated. Click these buttons here to go to the second page. You can see that Spring Reads has now been moved. But this is a good prompt to show you another option under here, table options, where I showed you can modify the columns. Well, you can also say that I want to show 50 items. Then I want to paginate here. I've seen everything now underneath the root because it's now showing up to 50. Now I can see Spring Reads at the bottom of the first page. Just like hide and edit, you can also get at move a different way. In the sub items window, I click the icon next to Spring Reads, I bring up this menu, and it also has move. So let's just do one more practice here with move. For some reason, I want to put this under About Us. So I'm going to just select About Us. Now it's being moved to be under About Us right here, Spring Reads. That's move. The other thing is copy. So copy is what this is, a copy. So I wanted to, let's say I have Spring Reads. I kind of like Spring Reads, but I wanted to modify it a little bit. So I'm going to use the same menu. I'm going to click copy. And for whatever reason, I wanted to put it also in About Us. So I go one level up, I click About Us. Let's see what it looks like here, Spring Reads and Spring Reads. How I know what the difference is, I got a few ways to know that. One is, well, the modified and published dates are a little later. But if I look at the URLs, so this was the original one, Spring Reads. And if something has the same name, the URL is going to get a 2 appended. If I add another one, it'll get 3, etc. So that's a copy. They're now distinct pages. I could edit this Spring Reads. And I don't know why I wanted to change this. Let's say they're going to be Spring Reads for teens. That's why I made this change. Now we've got Spring Reads and Spring Reads for teens. So that's move and copy. And the last in that batch of editing actually is delete. Delete, this is where you can delete them one by one. If I go to Spring Reads, I can go remove. I'm just going to go back. Or if I clicked on this icon, I can also remove from here. But this is one last thing that's useful actually in this sub-items tree is I can do a multi-select. And you click this button here, more actions. I can move or remove in bulk. So I wanted to remove both of these, and just click remove. And it's got both of them. I'm not going to put it in the trash. And no, I'm sure I don't want them anymore. So I just uncheck this. And there we go. I've removed them. So now you've got move, copy, and remove. And earlier we did hide. Okay, a couple more things. Sorting. So we started the training with the general pages. And one of the things about general pages is that it has a left menu. Let's go back here. Let's select Anywhere Public Library. And we see this left menu. Okay, so here's the path. And if I show you in the back end, I can do this copy paste trick. There you go. That's the page. Now, all of these items are coming from this tree. And if I look only at the pages underneath Anywhere Public Library, got test page, history, and mission and vision. How is that order determined? Well, if you look here in the sub items window, by in most cases, it's ordered by priority. And so you can see here, it's in ascending order, 0, 10, 20, and I can change this. I just changed this to 30 if I wanted to put the test page at the end. And I refresh this, I should see that the test page is now at the end. I actually don't remember if I said this before, but when you're ordering with priority, a tip is to use increments of 10 or more. You can use increments of 100 if you want. You can put any number you want. You could do 1, 2, 3. The reason why I like to use increments 10 is that you can have some space to put them between each other. So if now I wanted test page to be between history and mission, well, it's a little awkward because I don't actually know how to break the tie. So I'm going to say here 1, and then I'm going to move this to 3, and then I'm going to make this 2. But if these were 10, 20, and 30, and I changed my mind about the order, let's say now I want to put mission and vision between these two. Well, it's pretty easy because between 10 and 20, there's a lot of space. So prevent some awkward reshuffling of the numbers when there's already space between it. That's how you order the items in the left menu. I said that it's usually ordered by priority. If it's not, this is what determined how it was ordered. So underneath the sub-item window is how the sorting sort order is, sorry, the sort direction and the sort field are determined. Priority and ascending, if for some reason you wanted it to be descending. There, now the one with the highest one is going to be first. Put that back. Priority is the most common. You might also choose name. That's really the only one I would probably recommend. If it was date, it's usually you're ordering the news tree, but that news tree should already be ordered by date. So priority and name, it's usually priority, so you have complete control over the order of these pages. And that kind of completes what we were saying about general pages. I have one more tip we didn't go through for general pages. That is HTML blocks. Okay, so let's pick on Anywhere Public Library. So we're already on that page, Anywhere Public Library. I should probably edit this anyway because it's still mentioning Marigold. So let's change that. Okay. We have a lot of options for putting text into this body field, and we went through a lot of that. We've got headings, tables, left align, you can embed images. What you can't do is edit the source. And that's done purposely. If you've worked on some other CMSs, it kind of lets you hack up the HTML. We purposely don't allow that so that there's a bit more consistency in how things get displayed. But there are some cases where you need to do something that's kind of a one-off. So usually we have special functionality in this custom tag feature. That's where I showed in that first training about how we have accordions, block quotes, you can embed Facebook, Vimeo, YouTube. Maybe you have a new need. I would actually suggest the first thing you do when you have a new need is to talk about that with HQ, Andrew, Lena, and team, but whether that's something we should add to the system. But we have an out. You just have some HTML. So let me publish my change, and I'll show you the HTML blocks. This will be the last thing for this training. So if I go over to the media library, underneath YRL training, I expand all the way down to YRL training. I have these folders that are mostly for items that display on the homepage or images and files. HTML blocks are one of the exceptions. Under HTML blocks, that's where you can create some custom HTML. It's purposely done this way so that it can be reused. Also, it's easier to track this way. So if you go to the HTML blocks folder, you can create a new HTML block. What do I want to do here? I don't recommend you do this, but for demo purposes, I will just maybe change the color.
Hi, Leora.
Hi.
Custom header. So here for code, I'm just going to use the H2.
Oh, okay.
It's really not.
If I can mute people.
Whatever it's. but it would be okay for residents, so she's gonna use,
Oh, okay,
she's taking it.
okay.
Where that's coming from.
So,
Okay, so anyway, in this case, I can just
Not
type
that
any
one yet.
code.
We haven't
This is
gone
just
through
for
those
demo
yet.
purposes. I'm
No,
gonna make
they're just
this
donated.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, just
green.
a minute here, Peter. I think it's April.
Oh, sorry.
What was
If
it?
you could mute, that'd be awesome.
Sorry. I thought
All
I
good.
was.
I didn't see that in this. Thanks. Okay, so I'm just gonna make this green, and what other bad thing can I do here? I can make it, maybe blink still works, but okay, let's just stick to green. This is my custom header. And I go back to the Anywhere Public Library page, and where was that? Under About Us, Your Library, Anywhere Public Library. Now I can embed this HTML block. Click this little paperclip icon, and I browse, and I go over to the media library, and I select that HTML block. It's going to be beautiful. So let me just preview that. There we go. So now I've got any HTML I can add. Should probably come up with a better example, like an iframe or something. But that's where, if the custom controls are really not enough, and you really need to do that, it can't be something that we should consider adding to the system. That's where the HTML block allows you to break out of that. All right, so that's where we'll end it for today. On, I think, next Monday, that'll be after everyone's sites are launched, we'll finish up the training. We will go through the home page and menus. But any questions? We've got just a couple minutes before we end today for any questions you got so far. Otherwise, I'll see you all on Monday. All right, I will stop the recording.